Good Wednesday evening to you. Welcome to More Sports and Less Levine. I'm Dave Bacon, filling in for Les Levine. We're going to talk plenty Browns and Steelers playoff action, getting ready for that Sunday night kickoff. Some news, good news out of Berea later in the day as B.J. Goodson was activated from the COVID reserve list. He is good to go and should be available to play against the Steelers Sunday night. The Browns also signed Anthony Fabiano, a center, with Nick Harris going on IR. A couple days ago, the Browns were without a backup center, so those are those two housekeeping news items before we get to D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, who will be joining us in just a minute. Kevin Stefanski addressed the media today. He will be very involved remotely in all of the activities, game planning, and getting ready for the Steelers wildcard game. He also addressed Alex Van Pelt calling plays, who he says he has plenty of confidence in.
Yeah, ABP's been a huge part of our offense's success. He's a huge part of play calling. I may be the one sending it in there, but there's a ton of dialogue occurring. Yeah, ABP's been a huge part of our offense's success. He's a huge part of play calling. I may be the one sending it in there, but there's a ton of dialogue occurring between me and ABP and the rest of the offensive staff. So he knows kind of the things we believe in. He knows how we play. He spends every waking moment with the quarterback, which is important when you're talking about trying to get, him in a rhythm and comfort level and those type of things. So I have a ton of confidence in AVP's ability to get the job done.
Kevin Stefanski talking about Alex Van Pelt, AVP, the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, who will be calling the plays in Stefanski's absence on the sidelines Sunday. Let's welcome in the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, to talk more about this matchup. And D-Man, you heard from the coach. Sounds pretty good. Said he feels great. Doesn't want to talk about him. What about not having Kevin Stefanski on the sidelines?
Well, first of all, Dave, thanks for having me on. Secondly, I appreciate the head coach saying, no worries, we got this covered. And Alex Van Pelt, a.k.a. AVP, will do a fine job. But if Kevin Stefanski is as valuable to the Browns as I think he is, then this is a big loss for the Browns not to have him available. I mean, you can talk all you want about guys who can fill in for him and all the other guys who will step up their games to try to compensate. But I think Kevin Stefanski is a valuable piece on the sideline on game day. Therefore, it's going to be difficult for the Browns to overcome.
Let me ask you this. Are you concerned about in-game adjustments? That's typically, the first 15, 16, how many ever plays are usually scripted. And then you go based on what you're seeing and what you like. Is that what you're getting at? Is that the biggest part of the thing that you are concerned about?
Well, sure, and that's not to take anything away from Alex Van Pelt. I mean, he's a very bright offensive mind by all accounts and knows what he's doing. And I'm not saying he can't make adjustments, but to me, a very important piece of 11-5 was Kevin Stefanski. Is Kevin Stefanski, the head coach. Why? Because of his intelligence, his preparation, all that he does behind the scenes, all that he did to get his team ready to play, and then what he did during games to help his team win. That's what I'm driving at. It's just very difficult to replace him in this situation. But again, that doesn't mean that Alex Van Pelt can't do it. It doesn't mean he won't have a great game of call. Maybe he calls a great game, Dave, and it still doesn't work out because the Steelers are that much better. That's entirely possible.
Well, the other thing is how big of a loss do you think Joel Bitonio is from that offensive line group? I mean, that offensive line, you could argue they're as good as there is in the NFL, and it's because they work together well. Now you're taking a piece out of the middle of that.
Yeah, I laughed and I cried at the same time, Dave, because to me, as valuable as Stefanski is, a player of Joel Bitonio's caliber is exponentially more important and more valuable because he's the guy who's actually got to do the stuff on the field. And Kevin Stefanski would be the first to say that. Joel Bitonio, a rock on that defensive line, a bulwark, a guy who, has done it for years and years and years. What a shame that, his first crack at the playoffs and he has to be sidelined because of COVID. And here's the thing. Wyatt Teller was getting a lot of run at right guard, a lot of publicity at right guard, and rightly so, because Wyatt Teller was playing great. But on the other side of the guard front, on the left side of the center, Joel Bitonio was doing a heck of a job too, and not a lot of people were talking about him because he's old, dependable Joe, and he's just a lunch pail guy, just doing his job. And I'm not saying Teller was dying for headlines. I'm just saying that Joel Bitonio was not the newcomer, relatively speaking. He was just there plugging away, doing what he does best, and so he didn't get as much publicity as he probably should have, or as he definitely should have. He's an enormous loss.
And the other thing is, I think if you asked Jedrick Willis, the tackle, he's probably a reason that Wills is playing so well is because of Joel Bitonio right next to him.
That's entirely fair.
Well, the other thing that we're going to talk about is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when you look at the Steelers, they did not have Ben Roethlisberger a week ago playing quarterback. So now you go into the playoffs, Ben Roethlisberger at home, it seems like things are lining up very nicely for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Listen,
yes,
you can say traps, this, that. It's the playoffs. There's no such thing as someone's favorite, someone's not favorite. I don't believe in all that. This is the postseason where every team wants it just as bad as the next team. It's interesting because is there really a home field advantage? I don't know. So it's just a different year altogether. We have to go into it with the mindset that we need to play our best football and that we're going to get their best.
Jim Colony.
Yeah, Ben, obviously the Indianapolis game turned around quite a bit when you got Claypool involved, and then he was a big part of the offense last week as well. How important is it for you to get him involved early?
Well, it's important. It's important that we get everybody involved, though, early. We've got a lot of playmakers. We've got a lot of guys that can do some special things for us. He definitely is one of them. So, in order for us to be successful as an offense, we need everybody to contribute early and often.
D-Man, Ben Roethlisberger talking about the playoffs, this game potentially being a trap game. And, I think if they get Chase Claypool going, it could be a long, long afternoon or evening for the Browns.
I agree with you, Dave. I don't want to be Debbie Downer on these airwaves. I don't want to be, negative Ned or pessimistic Pete. But the bottom line is the Steelers' offense, specifically the quarterback and the receiving core against the Browns' defense, scares me. And when you recognize that the Browns are going to be without Olivier Vernon with the ruptured Achilles, so Vernon's out. What a shame, because he not only did he have a good year, he was the best edge rusher for the Browns down the stretch, because Miles had missed a couple of games because of COVID, and then when he came back, he wasn't himself. I don't know if he still is himself to this point. So Olivier Vernon was your best pass rusher, and he's gone. Roethlisberger, I would have had some hope if I'm a Browns fan, having watched him during the 3-game losing streak for the Steelers. But then when you saw the offense open up against the Colts and just do whatever they wanted in the second half against the Colts in the penultimate game of the regular season at Heinz Field, that makes you nervous, because that was vintage Roethlisberger there. That receiving core, even without Roethlisberger, makes me nervous. To wit, last Sunday, Dave Bacon, I don't know how good Mason Rudolph actually is, but he certainly looked good against the Cleveland Browns in Week 17. And why did he look so good? I think a lot of it had to do with the receivers. I don't want to discredit Mason Rudolph for a quality performance, but he was thrown to some really good players, and they were making plays for him. And so I'm afraid that potentially could continue on Sunday night.
How badly do you think the Browns defense needs Denzel Ward to be cleared? We're not going to find out until later in the week.
That goes without saying, Dave, but you said it and I said it. he's a critical piece. A defense that's, even with Miles and Denzel Ward, is not great. If you take one of those two guys off of it, and then as I mentioned, you also take Olivier Vernon off of it now, the 2020 Vernon as opposed to the 2019 Vernon, you got issues. And so the Browns desperately need Denzel Ward to be cleared and healthy and ready to rumble on Sunday night. But even more important than all this Steelers offense against Browns defense, Dave, could very well be this. The Browns offense has to figure out a way to control the clock, because the one way you can, potentially neutralize an explosive offense is if you control the ball on your side of it. And so it's incumbent upon the Browns offense to chew up clock with first downs and, of course, score points.
Dennis Manoloff, the D-Man, and we got to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll hear from some national guys getting ready to televise this game. The NBC crew will talk some of the Browns, Steelers, what they see, what they think might happen. More sports and Les Levine. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State text subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
Tri-C is here for you. Now more than ever, you need a post-secondary education. So I encourage you to start your journey here at Tri-C. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Welcome back to More Sports and Les Levine. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. The Browns getting ready to face the Pittsburgh Steelers in primetime Sunday night football, the marquee game of the first weekend of the NFL playoffs. Michaels, Cris Collinsworth, Tony Dungy, some of the best in the business, getting ready, doing the prep. We had a chance to talk to Cris Collinsworth, the analyst for Sunday Night Football, about Joel Bitonio and the Browns and how much that line will miss him.
I think it impacts it a lot, in part because of who they've got behind it, between Nick Harris and Chris Hubbard and the guys that were supposed to take his place. And so, who fits into that guard position now? And especially when you're going against the likes of Tuitt and Hayward and Alualu, and you're a power running team anyway, and the pass protection being such a key component part of it. We talked about it a little bit on the broadcast the other night, but 5/11 of the football team are offensive linemen, and when the strength of your team, which I think the strength of the Cleveland Browns is their offensive line, when one of those key guys gets taken out of it, that can be a little bit of a tough go for a football team. But they've been through it before. Wyatt Teller didn't play the last time we called the game, so they survived that one pretty well, so I assume they'll survive here too.
Cris Collinsworth, analyst for Sunday Night Football, who will be calling the Browns-Steelers game, talking about Joel Bitonio. Let's welcome back in the D-Man. D-Man, we alluded to it. I think I think that's part of the recipe. You got to run the football, control the clock. How big of a challenge is that, given what the Browns are going to face? You still have Chubb and Hunt. That gets you. That counts for something.
It does, but even Chubb and Hunt or any great back is not going to be able to get what they need if they're, first two steps, all of a sudden they're looking at an opponent in their face. So you've got to be able to block, and it's going to be a tall order. I mean, think about this, Dave, when you talk about trying to replace a Joel Bitonio or in the previous case, a Wyatt Teller. Remember the Jets game when Nick Harris was, replacing he was replacing Teller, or no, he replaced Hubbard, who would replace Teller. And Harris, I think, gave up a sack in that game, but he was, he was viable. Well, the next game, not so much. All right. It looked to me like Nick Harris had a lot of issues. So it's very difficult to have substitutes, especially this late in the game, especially when they're filling in for guys the caliber of Joel Bitonio.
Well, and as you alluded to, and as Cris Collinsworth alluded to, now you're talking the fourth. Bitonio's out, Hubbard's out, Harris is out. I'm not great at math, but that's your fourth guard on the roster that you're going to stick out there and say, hey, go block some really good defensive linemen for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, and the more we talk about it, Dave, the more I see 27-10, 35-13, 42. I hope I'm wrong. I truly do, because I want to see the Browns beat the Steelers like no one else. I mean, I love the Browns deep down. I'm born and raised here. Browns die hard, all that deal. But my rational mind, what's left of it after 20 years of sleeping pills, my rational mind doesn't look, at this as a particularly favorable matchup, especially given that it's going to happen in Heinz Field, admittedly with, the home field advantage seemingly neutered to a great extent. But the good news about this, though, Dave, is all, and I mean all, of the pressure is on the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're the ones who have to win this game for so many reasons, and including now the absence of the Browns head coach, various other personnel absences for the Browns. They're at home. They're the division winner. They have their full complement of offensive players, or so it would appear. They have their defense. They have T.J. Watt and all these other guys. So all the pressure is on the Steelers. If I'm the Browns, I go in there and I'm playing, mentally with house money, psychologically, and I'm just going to play free and loose and not be nervous at all.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind, the Steelers have not played well early in games. And, even the Colts game, that's the only game they've won in their last 5. Even in that game, they fell behind at halftime. Falling behind to the Cleveland Browns offense, even minus Joel Bitonio, is a lot different than falling behind the Indianapolis Colts offense, because you're going to get fewer possessions. It's just the way it is.
That's true, but the Steelers would counter by saying that they do have the quick strike capability. They have the deep ball. I mean, we saw the deep ball administered by Mason Rudolph on several occasions in Week 17 that hurt the Browns, including the fourth down touchdown bomb. So the Steelers, with that receiving core, that outside ability, outside the numbers ability, and Roethlisberger's veteran arm, they have the capability of coming back in a hurry. That's how they would counter that.
Without question. Let me ask you this. Were you surprised that the Browns didn't blitz more? I mean, when your cover guys are struggling, which they clearly were, one line of thought is you blitz and you get after the quarterback. Did that surprise you at all?
It did, and it didn't, Dave. It did because I would have thought exactly what you said, but it didn't because it's not really Joe Woods' style. I don't know where the Browns rank in terms of in the NFL number of blitzes or blitz percentage per snap, but I would think it's in the lower half of the NFL because I watched every game this year and I didn't see a whole lot of blitzes. And if they were coming, it was, 5 guys as opposed to 7 or 8. Joe Woods' crew generally doesn't like to, the jailbreak blitz type stuff. So I don't think he's going to get out of his element just because it's a playoff game, just because he thinks he has to take pressure off of his DBs. I think Joe Woods is going to stay true to who he is and his defensive philosophies, or what Joe Woods thinks his personnel is capable of. Because just because you want to blitz doesn't mean it's the smart thing to do given your personnel. So I think the Browns are going to have to win with the base defense. But let me say this, Dave and Les. Let me say this. It's about time that the special teams stepped up and helped out a little bit, okay? This is a game that is screaming for the Cleveland Browns special teams to do some magical things. How about break a big return? How about force a fumble on a punt return by the Steelers or a kick return by the Steelers? Something or more than one thing dramatic from the special team. Hey, Cody Parkey, how about you make every kick? All right? That could go a long way.
Let me ask you this. If we're going to say one guy we need to have a big game on the defensive side of the ball, who would you say? I have a thought in mind. Who would you say?
I'm going to go the easy route, Dave Bacon, and say Myles Garrett. I mean, Myles, to me, it's got to be a 3-sack special. I mean, he's got to force a fumble in there if he can, bat a couple of passes. I mean, he needs to be Superman on Sunday night. And I don't know if his body is capable of it. We don't know for sure how far back he is from his COVID positive diagnosis from weeks ago, but they need Myles Garrett to play like the number 1 overall pick on Sunday night.
Yeah, and you know what? We've seen earlier in the year he's certainly capable of doing that and dominating. This would be a really good time for him to get real healthy and do that again. The D-Men and I have to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll hear what the national guys getting ready to do this game think about the development of Baker Mayfield. More sports and Les Levine will be right back. Stay with us.
Shelley, our garage floor is just awful.
I know. We really need Nature Stone.
Cracks, uneven concrete, it's slippery.
I keep telling you, we need Nature Stone.
Coach, only Nature Stone solves all those problems. That's why it comes with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty.
And Nature Stone is absolutely beautiful and so easy to clean.
Schedule today at naturestone.com and get up to half your garage floor free. Hurry, offer ends soon.
Herb, Nature Stone fixed every problem in our garage.
I told you.
It's not just a floor.
Wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
More sports and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. Cris Collinsworth had a chance to talk with him a little bit earlier, and he talked about the development of Baker Mayfield, especially what he has seen late this season.
The only thing I'd say about Baker is that, man, his runs had a lot to do with that game the other day. They clinched it on a quarterback sweep. I almost sort of fell out of my chair, but it was a great call. Got the extra block route in front, and Baker was running hard. I mean, he probably ran the ball 4 or 5 times, but he was running like a fullback. Like, he was running like he was born in Cleveland, and it meant something a little bit extra to him. I think that he has really become sort of the embodiment of that fighting spirit right now of the Cleveland Browns and that poor fan base that doesn't get to go to the games right now. I mean, I just got to feel like the people in Cleveland are about ready to explode to get back into that stadium and cheer with a packed house the way that they used to do when they were back in the day. I can remember so well. So I think, if anything, Baker's kind of even risen here a little bit lately. He's made some big throws. He's doing most of it without Odell Beckham. You know, they seem to have, they miss Odell when they get into some of those single coverage situations. But it sort of galvanized the rest of the team, too, and forced some people to move forward with that receiving core. Probably Donovan Peoples-Jones, the number one person on that list. So they may be a better team going into next year once Odell comes back.
Cris Collinsworth, who will be the analyst for Sunday Night Football with the Browns and Steelers, a playoff matchup in primetime on Sunday night. Let's welcome back in the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff. Dennis, what have you seen from Baker? The development it's been pretty much what you would have hoped for if you were the Browns franchise from the beginning of the year until you are right here, about ready to go into the playoffs.
Oh, you're right, David. First of all, what Cris Collinsworth was speaking of in Week 17, 6 carries for 44 yards. The 44 yards, second only to Nick Chubb for the Browns on the ground. So Baker Mayfield doing it with his legs, helping his team out, capped by that power sweep. The Baker body right for 3 yards on 3rd and 2, or 3rd and 1 3/4. Regarding Baker's development, I mean, obviously we know he had a really good rookie year, set the rookie touchdown passing record until it was broken this year by Justin Herbert, but did an excellent job in 18, but he was playing in games that really didn't matter for the team. 19, high expectations for him and his team, both fell flat, the quarterback and the team. And you don't blame any one individual in this case. I think everybody had culpability here, but certainly Baker Mayfield, even when you factor in the potential explanations for his fall off or the explanations for his drop off, he still didn't play well. And I think he knew it, and he went into this offseason and was bulldog in his determination to get better and came in more humble than we've known him to be. And he still had the confidence, but he was more contrite, and it felt like he was willing to learn and had been willing to learn. And what you saw was a payoff this year. You saw a good season by a quarterback for an 11-5 team. He wasn't out of this world good. He wasn't average. He was good. All right. And by the way, there are plenty of NFL teams who would love to have a good quarterback at their helm. That's why I could feel confident in the Browns going forward with Baker Mayfield, because he looks like he's going to, continue to get better, or he has figured out what ailed him last year. He's coupled with a really good coach and a really good scheme. There's no doubt. But you give credit first and foremost to the player himself, to the quarterback. And Baker Mayfield was good this year, much more often than he was wobbly. And I mean, I think his final rankings in most of the metrics that really matter, including for me, total QBR that ESPN does, scale of 1 to 100, he was sitting in the high 70s, I believe it was. But he was, I think, 11th or 12th in the NFL in total QBR. That's fine. You can win with a top 12 quarterback in the NFL.
And the other thing is he'll be in the system another year. I think the thing that impressed me the most, he isn't making the turnovers in the red zone, throwing intercept. He's very aware of when to take a chance and when not to take a chance. And even the turnovers against the Jets, it came at a part of the game where he had to try to make a play. Those are turnovers you can live with. Those are turnovers that quarterbacks that win make sometimes. I think he's gotten away from the ridiculously bad turnovers that he had 2019.
Dave, you're absolutely right. I mean, think about last year. Was it 22 TDs, 21 picks? And in this year, it was 25 or 26 TDs and just 8 picks. So he dropped his interceptions down from 21 to 8. And he played the full 16 games this year. You're absolutely right. I mean, he was willing to throw the ball away. He came into the league with the gunslinger mentality. He was the swashbuckler and, Brett Favre Jr. and all that kind of stuff. And maybe that worked out for him a little bit in 18. And he's like, man, I could keep doing this. I'm going to be able to pump the ball down the middle of the field and try to fit it into a postage stamp window. Well, in 19, it was proven otherwise. You know what, Bake? You can't be doing this. There's, Brett Favre is a once-in-a-generational gunslinger for a reason. I don't know that you want to try to be that guy who forces stuff. And it was impressed upon him undoubtedly by the coaches, but probably also when he looked in the mirror, hey, you need to be smart with the football. You cannot turn the ball over. You cannot be reckless with it. Even though you have the arm talent, you have the MPH, the velo, you've still got to be wise when you have the ball. And he cut down dramatically on his interceptions. And it's one of the reasons why the Browns went 11-5.
Yeah, and the other thing is I think as he gets a little bit further along in this offense, so, a second year in an offensive system, what a concept for Baker Mayfield, huh? I think you may see he'll figure out where he can take some chances trying to fit things in that aren't quite as dangerous.
That's correct. He can feel dangerous all he wants, but he doesn't have to play dangerous. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And that's, I also think you credit Kevin Stefanski, for coming in and being like the voice of reason here. I mean, he probably said to the Bake Show, listen, Bake, I mean, I know you like to freewheel it and all that stuff, but look what it got you in 2019. You really weren't that good of a quarterback. You were a bottom 10 quarterback in the NFL. If you want to ascend back up the ranks, if you want to have your fifth-year option picked up and you want to be signed to a long-term deal here, it's in your best interest to listen to me, okay? And listen to Alex Van Pelt and listen to Bill Callahan as we put the offensive game plan together, and just be careful with the ball. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to, or that you can't try to make plays. It just means you can't be reckless.
Yeah, and the flip side of it is I don't think there's any question they pick up the fifth-year option anymore. And as they get a little further down, I think they're probably thinking long-term extension, just not sure the dollar figure right yet. Not sure if the dollar figure will work out, but I think they'd like to have him long-term. I don't think there's any question about that.
As they should. I mean, to me, because the thing about it is, and I agree. I'm not saying that I would ever want to move on from the Bake Show, but if let's say you were to do that, okay, where are you going to go to find a quarterback to automatically rank in the top 12 or 13 in the NFL in total QBR, in passing efficiency, and all these other 21st century numbers that are used to grade quarterbacks? This is a top half of the league quarterback, and top half of the league quarterbacks get paid. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, and you know what? I think this is a quarterback that's still going to ascend a little bit. I don't think 12. I think he could get into the top 5, top 6, maybe top 8. I think there's a lot of development still there for Baker Mayfield.
Dave, let me jump in here. You make a point too that I want to expound on a little. We get caught up in the adoration of the stars. In other words, oh well, A-Rod's the best, and Mahomes is awesome, and Brady in his prime is awesome, and Breeze was awesome, and Roethlisberger. But we got to recognize those guys are elite talents for a reason, because there's not that many of them. Just because Baker Mayfield is not Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes doesn't mean that you can't win with him.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly, and I think as you develop and go a little bit further, I think they're going to find out they can win pretty successfully, and not ready to say they can win a Super Bowl yet with him, but I'm getting in that area code with the way he's playing football. Let's take a timeout. The D-Man and I are going to take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we'll see if the national guys getting ready to call this game for Sunday Night Football feel this is a long-term success that the Browns have built. Do they have the plan in place to be successful for a long time? More sports and Les Levine. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
We're living in uncertain times, but you don't have to put your future on hold. At Tri-C, you can move ahead while staying safe and saving money. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, check out Tri-C's programs and resources, because Tri-C is where futures begin.
Well, hello, everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Browns Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get text sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Lobby, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week. And it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant, whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
More sports, and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. Browns getting ready for that Sunday night football matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers, first round of the playoffs. Al Michaels, Cris Collinsworth, the guys that call the game, travel all across the country talking to the best of the best in the NFL. And it certainly seems in their eyes like the Browns franchise has turned the corner.
Well, you're always talking about a coach and quarterback combination. And, I mean, when you're looking at it right now, I mean, I know Stefanski's only had 1 year, but he's done a heck of a job, obviously. And Baker Mayfield, after maybe last year wasn't a great year for him, but I think Tony summed it up perfectly. Maybe the numbers aren't fantastic, but when you watch him play, you understand it. So when you have a coach and a quarterback situation like that, which appears to be highly promising for the future, a great offensive line. Chris talked about that. You got a great running back in Chubb. You got another running back in Hunt. You got Myles Garrett on the other side. You got all these guys. They've got a lot of stars as well. I mean, Landry. You put him in that mix. A lot of players who are well known now, not only around the league but for the viewing public. So that's why I think when you look at this team, clearly this to me is a team very much ascending.
Yeah, and one of Al's favorite subjects, this is a team that's based on analytics as well. They've spent a lot of money gathering a group of really smart people. I mean, really smart people. I know a bunch of these guys and ladies. So I think they're all in. Give Jimmy Haslam credit. They've attacked this from every front. They've got a great stadium now. They've got the fan base is amazing. Analytics is great to keep Al happy, and hopefully, I know they're thinking they've got their quarterback now. So there's a lot of things and coach going in the right direction.
So welcome back in the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff. Dennis, they alluded to it. Quarterback, coach, and in this instance, I think you have to throw general manager Andrew Berry in that mix as well. It finally looks like they have the pieces in place to grow this to where they want to go.
You're right, Dave. Let me say this from the previous segment. I shortchanged the Bake Show. 72.4 was the total QBR, lower than I thought, but ranked 9th. So he's top 10 in total QBR, which is a very important metric in my mind to judge quarterbacks. So, but regarding the hierarchy and everything else, let me start by saying I give a lot of credit to the Haslams, Jimmy and D. Okay, we have dumped on the Haslams over the years because, quite honestly, the Haslam ownership of the Browns up to this year had been a disaster. All right, there's no other way to put it. And you had the all sorts of upheaval, front office, coaches, players, toxic environment, all that kind of stuff. The reputation was terrible. Only a few years ago, the head coach of the team was jumping in Lake Erie because his team went 0-16 after going 0-15 or 1-15. Well, guess what? The Haslams this year had a winner on their hands, and you barely saw them or heard from them, Dave. They weren't out there trying to make headlines. If I were Jimmy and D, after all the negativity that had been directed toward me, and again, I'm not saying it wasn't deserved because the franchise was teetering and flopping every which way under the Haslams, but if I finally got a winner, you would see me in front of the camera, behind the microphone, every chance I get. Jerry Jones of the Midwest, if I were Jimmy, I'd be telling everybody how great I am, how great my team is. I'm the man. I'm the man. You didn't get that from Jimmy or from D. They stayed in the background, and I give them a ton of credit for that. I also give credit to Jimmy and D for not, going with Freddie Kitchens for another year. They learned from the Hugh Jackson mistake. They cut the bait on Freddie, and they said, look, we got to move on from him, and a gutsy call to say that's enough with John Dorsey. That wasn't an easy decision to make. But one guy that doesn't get mentioned enough is Paul DePodesta when it comes to the front office. Depot, we know, the previous year wanted Kevin Stefanski 2 years ago. And instead, the Browns went with Freddie Kitchens. Well, this time around, Paul DePodesta still wanted Kevin Stefanski. And this time, he got his wish. But I'm wondering if Paul DePodesta is not in the building, is Kevin Stefanski the coach of the Cleveland Browns? I'm going to answer my own question and say no. So because Kevin Stefanski to me is such a revelation, such a breath of fresh air, and so important to this team, to me, his arrival here is directly tied to Paul DePodesta, the chief strategy officer.
You know, the way DePodesta and the Haslams have handled this, it kind of gives credence to what we have heard all along. They really wanted badly to put a winner together, and I think the fact that they haven't been out thumping their chest when it has come to fruition shows, you know, they just wanted to get it right. They finally got it right, it looks like.
That's right. And, you know, Jimmy and Dee have been quiet. They've let other people get the credit. Andrew Berry has been quiet for the most part. He's let everybody else get the credit. Paul DePodesta is invisible pretty much to the public. So those four people right there, I mean, I give them a ton of props for recognizing that, yes, they had a hand in this, a big hand in building this, but they're giving the credit where they're allowing the credit to go where it's due, which is the players and the coaches.
Let's turn our attention quickly to the game at hand. When you look at this matchup with the Steelers, give me some thoughts about what the Browns need to do. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. How do you get enough points so that you end up 1 point ahead of the Steelers when it hits all zeros in the fourth?
Yeah, you know what, Dave? I know the easy answer to that, the knee-jerk answer is, well, you got to establish the run with Nick Chubb, and then, you know, you come in with Kareem Hunt. Okay, that sounds great, but you know what? The Steelers know you're going to try to do that too, and they're not an easy team to run on, especially within the division. What I think the Browns need to do is the quick game, the extended handoffs, the arrow routes with Chubb and Hunt.
So both of them, yeah.
There you go, the Chunt, you know. But they need, we were begging for that against the Jets because the Jets were sending their corners because they had no respect for the Browns' replacement receivers to beat them downfield. So they said, we're going to rush our cornerbacks and we're going to speed up Baker so quickly that he can't even worry about a down the field throw. The way you beat that, though, the way you beat Blitzburg, the way you try to neutralize T.J. Watt off the edge is with the dump-offs and the screens. And I know the Steelers can keyhole that eventually, but I think they need to do more of that. They need to do more of the quick stuff and the precision blocking outside with their receivers, their tight ends down the seam, those types of things to try to neutralize Pittsburgh's pass rush. That's what I would emphasize if I'm the Cleveland Browns. And then hopefully, you know, you can open up the field for a deep ball every once in a while.
The back half of that defense is not very good. I mean, they struggle in the secondary, especially Joe Hayden on the COVID list. That hurts them. So there is some area that you can exploit there with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and the Browns also have, you know, tight ends that are capable, you know, and now it's what? Because Bryant's out, so it's Njoku and Hooper. But those two guys can play. And I don't know what it is with David Njoku, but you know what? If there was ever a time for David Njoku to have a monster game, Sunday night is the time to do it.
The D-Man and I have to take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we'll continue to talk about the formula for the Browns to beat the Steelers in the first round of the playoffs Sunday night on Sunday Night Football. More sports and less Levine. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Shelly, we really need to get Nature Stone in our basement.
I know, Herb, and it would look great in our laundry room, too.
Coach, only Nature Stone is perfect for your basement and laundry room because it never needs replaced like damp carpet and moldy tile. That's why it comes with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty.
And Nature Stone is absolutely beautiful and so easy to clean.
Schedule today at naturestone.com and get up to half your basement or laundry room floor free. Hurry, offer ends soon.
Shelly, Nature Stone is perfect for our laundry room and basement.
I told you.
It's not just a floor. Wow,
it's Nature Stone.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
More sports and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. Browns getting ready for that Sunday night primetime matchup against Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday Night Football, first round of the NFL playoffs. One of the guys that is a part of that crew for Sunday Night Football, former NFL coach Tony Dungy. He knows all about building long-term success in a franchise, and he feels Browns are headed that way.
I'm going to go away from the analytics a little bit and tell you why they're going to be good. I've talked to Kevin Stefanski a few times. He's changed the attitude and the culture, and it has nothing to do with analytics. He told me they chart on offense the number of times they knock a defensive player off his feet, and they keep track of that, and they're doing it at a very high rate, and the leader in that category is Jarvis Landry. So when you get everybody on the team buying into that's going to be our philosophy, we're going to be tougher and more physical than the other team. That's going to go a long way. When you put those great players and exciting guys together with that mentality that Kevin has taken there, I think that's why they're going to be good for a long, long time.
And Tony Dungy should know about that. You saw won a Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers as a player and then with the Colts as a head coach. Let's welcome back in the D-man, Dennis Manoloff. Dennis, I like what Tony Dungy had to say. I like the fact that there's a sense that the culture has changed. That's a big part, and that will play a factor in this playoff game. There's a lot going against the Browns, but when you get used to winning, you feel like you can figure a way out to win.
That's true. If anybody can figure it out, it's Kevin Stefanski as far as how to delegate and how to overcome that. That's what you would think. But to what Tony Dungy was talking about, very difficult for any coach to change the culture of a team in 1 year, especially a culture that has been so toxic and so miserable for so many years. Well, Kevin Stefanski's done it in basically 1 year, and he's done it as a first-year NFL head coach during a global pandemic. So what he has achieved this year is nothing short of remarkable. Granted, the Browns have taken advantage of what turned out to be a Charmin soft schedule, and there's no doubt about it. But they also won some key games in there, and they won 11 games in an NFL season. That's the bottom line. In a bottom line business, when you go 11-5, you are a winner for that season. And I don't even know if they're going to match or exceed 11 in the years to come, but I do think this is the step they needed to take in order to restore order, to get, well, some would say since 99, order hadn't been there at all, but just the second playoff berth, the second double-digit victory total, and even though 2007 wasn't the playoffs, 2002 at 9-7 was. But what you've done is you've shown these players that if they do things the right way, and if the coaching staff and the players work hand in hand, you can win games. And I think that's what the expectation will be going forward. And perennial playoff contention will be the way of the Browns for the time being. Now, when will they ascend the division hierarchy? When will they be challenging for the division every year? I don't know. Maybe as soon as next year. But at the very least, I think you're looking at a perennial playoff contender.
All right, let's turn our attention back to this game Sunday night. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, what do the Browns need to do? What are some of the keys, the ingredients that are there if the Browns, again, are going to win this game?
I would say if they have it in them, Dave, to mix up the defenses a little bit, try to do some disguise coverages, mix up man and zone. I don't know, even throw in, as an ode to Pittsburgh, throw in a few zone drops and see how that works. See if you can mess with Roethlisberger's mind a little bit, because I don't know that you're going to get the pass rush that you need. And as a result, you got to compensate for that. And then you've also got to defend those talented receivers. So I would say mix up the coverages, blitz when applicable, and play fundamental football. I mean, they have to play fundamental football. They have to do their job. What does Belichick always say? Do your job. So if they do their job, and they tackle, presumably they'll be able to at least keep the Browns in it.
Yeah, I would say in order to win the game, they have to win the turnover battle. They can't push. They can't tie. It has to be +1. I think +2 is what I would be pushing for. If they get +2, I feel pretty good about them winning that game. And I think there's going to be opportunities there. That defense just has to make some of those plays happen.
I agree with you, David. I'll go back to what I said earlier in the show. The special teams has to show up and show out. I mean, too many times over the years, the Cleveland Browns special teams just haven't been good enough in a matchup against a quality opponent. Well, it doesn't get any bigger than this as far as a playoff game finally after 18 years and or 17 years. The special teams needs to be special for the Browns. Somehow, some way, they've got to be a difference maker.
All right, time of the show where we have to make our picks. Tell me how you see this one coming
Why?
out. I know where you're going with this. We talked a little bit before the show. What are you thinking?
Prove me wrong, Browns. Listen, I thought the Browns were in trouble even with Kevin Stefanski and Joel Bitonio. Now, without those two guys, if you're telling me the game was in Cleveland, somehow miraculously the Heinz Field plumbing wasn't working, they had to play it in Cleveland, I'd be like, okay. But something happens to this franchise when they go to Heinz Field. So it's a perfect storm for the Steelers to dominate. And unfortunately, I think even if they don't dominate, they're going to win by double digits.
I actually think the Browns, and my head tells me, boy, there's a lot working against them. Claypool, Roethlisberger, Juju Smith-Schuster, that kind of thing. I think some way the Browns find a way to get that +1, +2 in the turnover battle, and they find a way to win this by, under 3 points. I think it's within 3. And I think some way the Browns find a way to win. I don't think Pittsburgh has been playing very well. I have seen major parts. I watched most of their game against Washington when it was Wednesday or whatever it was, a Tuesday or whatever that was. And I watched almost all of their game against Cincinnati Bengals. Those are not good football teams. And Ben Roethlisberger looked every bit of 38. He played one half of good football against the Colts. I want to see him do it again. And again, Logically, I don't know why. I just think they find a way to win this game.
I've never wanted Dave Bacon to be right more than.
D-Man, we are all out of time. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Dennis Manoloff, the D-Man. All right, that'll do it for this edition of More Sports and Les Levine. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine. We'll see you again tomorrow night. Have a great night, everybody, and stay safe. See you tomorrow.